Greetings, everyone, from the galaxy far, far away. This is the Legacy of Star Wars podcast presented by Fandom Empire. I'm your host, Johnny, and it is truly an exciting episode we have for you guys tonight. As you can see, we're ranking every Star Wars theatrical film. I'm joined, of course, by my co-hosts. Randy, how you doing this week?
Not doing too bad. I mean, considering it's been one of those weeks already. Also, I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that it's less than 2 weeks to Christmas. So, yeah, it's interesting time indeed to just all things considered. And obviously, I'm excited about getting to rank the movies, at least how I view them, and be curious to see what you guys come up with too.
It's certainly going to be interesting to see our lists and all of the discussions that will create. And joining us tonight from Haddonfield, Illinois, is this a super meta crossover?
I'm trapped in a time vortex. It's still Monday.
Sean, how you doing this week?
I was pretty good actually up until about 10 minutes ago. I was not having a Randy day. I know Randy's having a bit of a week, and I feel like I've been there for like 4 or 5 weeks in a row, and I don't know. The last couple of days I was feeling pretty good, and then obviously we got some non-Star Wars related news right before we went on air. Johnny, I know you're a really big Brooklyn Nine-Nine fan. I know you were talking about it years and years and years before I ever gave a single episode a shot. If you want to introduce the news to everybody, feel free.
I mean, I don't really want to, but I feel like I have to. It's that kind of news. Just before we went on the air, obviously, article was posted a few hours ago now, so this news trickled us kind of late. Andre Braugher, Brooklyn Nine-Nine fame most recently in Hollywood Homicide Life on the Streets in the 80s and early 90s. Andre Braugher passed away at 61 after battling a brief illness. I'm in a state of shock. This news has just hit me right in the gut. I was a fan of Brooklyn Nine-Nine from the jump. I was an Office fan. I was a Parks and Rec fan, and this is just another Michael Schur show. So I loved it right from the jump, and his character just was he was the most comedically uncomedic character I've ever seen in television history. The man gets laughs by just doing normal everyday things in such a way that just, he makes the monotone funny in a way that no one's ever done before or probably ever will do again. And I'm just flabbergasted. I have nothing more to say than Hollywood lost an amazing talent. I've seen him in other things. He was in The Good Fight, I think, after Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Would you rank Brooklyn Nine-Nine? It's a phenomenally talented actor.
Yeah, I mean, I was mentioning to you right before we came on air here. The first thing that I recall seeing him in was I haven't watched House in a while, so I don't know what season it is, but House gets into a lot of crap and basically has to check himself in, and the person overseeing the facility he's at was the character that he was playing, and I think he comes back later on too. But like, and very, very different polar opposite character that he plays in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. So like the guy had all sorts of range, and I feel like far too often lately we're talking about people dying instead of celebrating them when they're here. Not that he didn't get celebrated, obviously he did, but it's definitely unfortunate. Our thoughts are definitely with his family and friends at this time.
Most definitely. It's interesting when you kind of look at this film, just the wide range of movies he's been in, starting with Glory with Denzel Washington back in the late 80s, and Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. And then of course And then, of course, he also voiced Darkseid in the Superman Batman Apocalypse animated movie. So it's like he had just this absolute, just amazing career, whether it's TV, what being on Law and Order, or obviously Brooklyn Nine-Nine being probably one of his more popular series he's been in. But it's just, you look at that and it's just like, man, the dude was a great character actor, and it's just absolutely just, I'm just in shock as much as you guys that at 61 is just too young, especially nowadays. It just blows me away that we always have to come through situations like this to really kind of have a retrospect of someone's journey and their career, rather than, like you were saying, Sean, just celebrating the man while he was alive.
Yeah, we could probably do a whole episode dedicated to just what he's done and the impact he had on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and how that show definitely wouldn't have been the same without him. It's unfortunate, and our thoughts are definitely, like I said before, with his family and friends at this time. Let's try to move on now with some more positive things. Johnny, take it away.
Indeed. Wow. All right, let's go to something a little more happier before I do the normal like and subscribing pandering. The triple multiple choice question for this week. Obviously in line with the conversation we're having at the end of the show, which is where we will rank our theatrical film releases. We thought our multiple choice question would be film related, so we ask you the question: what is the best sequel trilogy Star Wars movie? Comment on the video and let us know what you guys think. If you're here in the live chat, type it in there and let us know what you think, and which one you guys think is your favorite, the best of the sequel films. You'll get a pretty good idea of what we think later on when we rank the films. So yeah, hit up that multiple choice question and let us know what you guys think is the best sequel trilogy Star Wars movie. And if you're watching this video, please don't forget to head on down below, hit that like button, comment, subscribe, and slash the notification bell to keep up with all our content and help us defeat the evil algorithm. Of course, you can find us on other platforms, Twitter, Facebook, at Phantom Empire Now. And if you want to contribute to the channel on another level, you can head on over to our Patreon platform, patreon.com/Phantom Empire, where you can contribute and get exclusive content. And of course, if you're watching us on YouTube, check out all of our other shows here on the channel, including Tonight in Haddonfield Monday nights. And on Wednesday nights, welcome to the Geek Side. This week, we're discussing top 5 wrestling games, Punk Seth, and the awful Otani contract, and Christmas movies, and holiday.
You, Otani. That's right. You and your agency and all that shit.
I don't blame you guys for being pissed.
By the way, this game is not the one that's on display here in this thumbnail is not in my top 5. Spoiler alert.
Why not? It's actually a good game for an arcade game.
Do you remember the console version?
It was an arcade game on a console. What did you expect to happen?
Yeah, it was very good.
I mean, I don't know. The Vince McMahon commentary tracks that were pretty damn good. I mean, it still gets quoted in my house to this day. Occasionally, somebody will be lying down, and myself or my brother will just randomly yell out, "Pin him!" in that esoteric Vince McMahon voice. But I digress. You can hear that tomorrow night on our top 5 wrestling video games. Now, back to Star Wars. It's time for us to head to the HoloNet and receive this week's news transmissions, where, of course, we'll be talking about Star Wars news, rumors, and all of the related jib-jab in the week. And, of course, since it's a Tuesday night, a deluge of news has once again been dropped on our doorstep, causing us to change our plans.
Good stuff.
Almost at the last minute. Some of it's good, and some of it we'll just talk about another time when we don't want to be Debbie Downers. All right, the first piece of news has come to us by way of Jeff Schneider. as one of the prominent people reporting this one, that Mando season 4 is no more and will instead be turned into a movie, which is set to be the first Star Wars movie, excuse me, to release on the new slate, making Star Wars has since um, sort of taken the opposite stance, saying that their sources are telling them it is still a season of TV. So, guys, we've had two prominent people telling. I'm feeling like we're back on Saturday again. Otani's a Blue Jay. Otani's not a Blue Jay. I'm feeling like I've played this game this week. I don't like how this game turned out last time. I'd like to play a new game. And that is which person is whose sources are most accurate is the question of the week.
The interesting thing there is, and I find like the very unique thing developing from the story is the fact that, and I've said it on this channel a bunch of times, I'm not saying that other places and other sources can't get things right, but these are people that report things prior to the big Hollywood trades breaking them. There has been nobody, period, more accurate than making Star Wars in the Disney Star Wars era. Whether it's spoilers, leaks, on-set reports, pre-production reports. Now, that doesn't mean his track record is flawless. You know, I know Jason. And actually, Johnny, you've talked to Jason. You and I had him on Star Wars Wastelands a few times. And he's actually been on this channel too. So like, track record's not perfect, but it's damn near flawless. And then in comes Jeff Snyder, who left Collider, and I forget where else he was. He was with somebody else. And in terms of like Hollywood inside scoops, getting stuff before the major trades get him, he does, because he used to work for the major trades. So he's got sources and connections. And the interesting thing here is 99% of the time, these guys are on the same page.
It's not often we've seen these two guys take such diametrically opposed stances on a topic. I mean, we've seen them disagree on things before, but it's usually the minutia, the minute details. But this is the first time where it's an apples and oranges argument
over something pretty critical.
Absolutely. Randy, what do you think? What's your sort of initial takeaway from this?
I think it's just being someone who's not really as familiar with these guys, because I don't go looking for this sort of information. It's bothersome to me that we're getting two different stories rather than the same thing as saying yes, it's going to be a movie, or yes, it's going to be a show. Me personally, I'm prefer it to be.
Well, we'll get to that next.
But I mean, just like overall, I'm just kind of like, I don't know. There's so many rumors out there. There's so many things out there that can be either true or false, and it's like you just kind of take everything with a grain of salt at this point, and just kind of hope that what you want comes to fruition versus what they're saying.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, these are two guys who, obviously in this field, nobody's perfect. That's to take the baseball analogy that we seem to be running with tonight, these are two of the best average hitters in baseball. And on this story, one of them is going to, have a 4-for-4 night. They're going to hit for the cycle. And the other one's going to have a golden sombrero hung on their head. So it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. But, we have two such diametrically opposed stances, movie or TV show. So I guess the question now is, Randy, you kind of answered it, but I'll give you a chance to go in a bit more detail into the reasons why. Which is your preference for this? Would you rather this, be held up and come to us on the big screen, or would you rather, the continued Disney Plus, now we have the weekly versus the straight drop, but, what's your preference for this? The drip drop, the dripping of a TV series, or would you rather just go to the theater and watch this there? Randy, why don't you expand on your answer, since you already gave us the base?
I memean, as cool as it would be to see a film, I think I've just gotten so accustomed to seeing it as a series. Now we know that eventually we're going to get Filoni's Mandoverse movie, which is cool and all, but also if you start with what was supposed to be season 4, it's been said many times, it's hard to go from the small screen to the big screen. So my real big concern is that would it be is there really not enough of a story to create a series, versus are we going to use this movie as a stepping point towards the Filoni movie? I mean, I feel like you could set up so much more with the series, given what we've gotten with Ahsoka, that it could lead into Mando and Grogu playing a part in the movie. And I like the idea of the slow burn and building up and getting that getting the story and getting more, new things added to it that, I like lore. So, and that's one of the things that I've always enjoyed about the TV series is there's always little bits of lore that we wouldn't get in a movie. So it's like, I get it. It's, if there's not a big enough story for a full season, I understand the idea of a movie, but I would prefer just having that nice slow burning, having a chance of adding to the story.
Sean, what about you?
So to add to the story just a little bit, this report, even though this is a new one now, there was a report about this a few months ago. Interestingly enough, from Making Star Wars. And Making Star Wars had that he had heard they were preparing to switch the production from a show to a movie. And Snyder, even back then, said the opposite, and that they were going to stick to being a show, and he hadn't heard about it being a movie. And now here we are a few months later, strike's over, things are starting to move, and they're both saying the opposite of what they had before. Again, I can't stress enough that these guys and those two in Bespin Bulletin, who is one of the guys covering it, and is kind of like a middleman between the two. It's the behind the scenes of it all I find unique, because I don't think, given their reputations and their track records, either one of these guys is going out there and doing this just for clicks or making it up. I think they are getting this information, and we have no idea what the fuck is coming at the moment. And frankly, half the time, I don't know if Lucasfilm does. You can be the most positive, sequel trilogy or Disney or Star Wars fan in the world, and if you can't take the rose-colored glasses off to look at some of the behind-the-scenes issues and production issues that have gone on, I don't know what to tell you or what you're paying attention to the last 11 years. But for me, it's simple. Star Wars is cinema. Star Wars deserves to be seen on the big screen. That being said, look, we don't get 8 hours of TV from a season of Mandalorian, even though that's how they advertised it going into these shows. We get more like 4.5 hours out of 8 episodes. So you're talking about 4.5 hours versus a 2.5 hour movie. That is a lot of content and a lot of story and a lot of events that are no longer going to be there. Mando 4, Jon Favreau was on the record of saying this, was written a while ago. Like, we're talking before Ahsoka was even done the writing phase, which is why MSW had put out anyone who's hoping for like a ton of Ahsoka crossover in Mando 4. That is not the plan right now. So, and like, I think they're getting ready to shoot early next year too. It doesn't mean there'll be none, because you can always change things. Like, they haven't even begun shooting yet. Stuff changes a lot when you go to set. Obviously, they have some certain limitations with stagecraft where you can't just be like, okay, well, we're on a green screen and let's switch to this. That's not how stagecraft works. So, like, it's just a matter of how you prefer your storytelling. To me, it doesn't make sense to, here's season 1, season 2, season 3. They're 4.5 hour, seasons. And now you're going to get season 4. Obviously, they won't title it that. And it is, that's what it is, season 4. But just shrunk down or truncated down into a 2.5 hour movie with some weird title. Now, if you told me in order for the Filoni movie to come out on its currently scheduled date, which I believe is December 2026, there's been the rumblings that they need to do another season of Ahsoka, and given where it leaves off, it kind of feels that way in terms of where everybody is. However, if you were to, go back to square one, scrap whatever the hell Favreau wrote for Mando season 4, and you do a movie in Republic space with Mando or the Mandalorians, with Thrawn, with the Republic, with Ezra, and you get that started without the involvement of those that are still stuck out in the unknown regions and all that, then I sit here and I go, okay, that makes sense. You don't have time to do Ahsoka season 2 before the Filoni-verse movie, whatever he's going to call it. Let's do a movie to get all these pieces into place. But it's not that, from my understanding. They're not talking about doing that. They're talking about doing Mando 4 as a movie. And if that's the case, it doesn't work. It just seems like they're trying to get a quick paycheck.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Where I stand, I only care about the story. And if the best presentation for that is a 2.5 hour film versus, 4.5 to 5 hour TV series, which is what we're likely to get, then I don't mind if they change it. I'm not against it out of pocket because, again, like Randy said, I'm about the lore and I'm about the story. And it's all about the best presentation. I mean, if you're going to give me a 4.5 hour TV series, but an hour of that is going to be filler stuff that I'm not going to give a rat's tuchus about, then, either go for a 3-hour film or, condense it, make it a bit more action packed in some of the places and just give me the film version of it, and I'd be perfectly okay with that. So to me, it just boils down to where's the best presentation of the story. And I don't know, because, I don't know what they're doing. Like Sean said, if they're sort of throwing out everything Favreau had written prior to Ahsoka coming out and basically starting from a fresh slate, then okay. But then that sort of, brooks you into the position of a film is a much more difficult endeavor to shoot, and produce. So is it, is the timing still going to be the same? Is it going to throw off the timing? There's so many ifs and questions here that we don't have the answers to, that I really don't know.
I totally just lost my train of thought. Randy, any thoughts?
I think the only way a movie works is if they actually have a script written for the film. I mean, when you look at it, there's the pre-production, you've got a lot of your actors, but if you're going to do a movie, they're going to try to get more other people and
more name value.
Exactly. So that's not a lot of time if you're going to try to say Filoni's movie is coming out in 2026. That's really, considering we're at the end of 2023, and that some movies take, depending on how much you're putting into it, could take you're going to take multiple months. I mean, could take anywhere from 6 months or longer to film, and then you still have post-production and all that stuff, reshoots. You're talking about really cutting it close to put out a Mando movie right before Filoni is supposed to put out his movie. And if you're talking about trying to do Ahsoka season 2 on top of it, potentially, I feel like you're just putting too much on just in creative sense. There's just too much on Disney's plate, Lucasfilm's plate, to try to push all that out on top of the stuff they've already promised us that is coming out in 24 and 25. It doesn't make sense to try to rush a Mando film. It just doesn't.
This is going to be an unpopular opinion. And Mando season 3 has been out for like a year now. So if you haven't seen it, or not a year, but getting close to a year. Sorry if this is going to spoil anything for anybody. I'll try to be vague, but we don't need Mando season 4. Like, we don't. Think about where season 3 ends, and in terms of that character or those characters, um, there's no real need for season 4. Not to say that season 4 can't be this fucking badass, kick-ass, on to the next adventure thing, but season 3 already felt like a unnecessary, convoluted continuation of season. Like I'm so critical of season 3 over season 2, and season 1 for that matter. I just felt like the quality of the show was up here, and then it's like, okay, kind of like you were just saying, Randy. I know you might have warmer feelings to Mando 3 than I do, but like I felt like they had so much going on, so much on their plate. So many different shows came out that year. You had Andor, you had Kenobi, you had Tales of the Jedi, you had Bad Batch 3, you had obviously Mando 3 was at the beginning of this year. There was another one. I'm forgetting what it is though. And like just so many things going on at once. And then Mando 3 seemed to suffer like significantly compared to the quality of the 2 previous seasons. So it's not that I don't want to see the character again, but like, let's be honest, there's also a behind the scenes issue here with Pedro Pascal. People can pretend that there's not. There is. They paid him to be a voice actor, not to be the star. And then that ended up being a big thing, like in terms of a live action star. And he ended up getting a pay increase from it. But the problem is he's no availability. So if you want to show the guy's face more, specifically in a movie, you probably need to see it. Good luck. Because he's busy. Like, it's not going to happen. So I don't know. I just don't feel the need for it, and I'm starting to become slightly concerned about what the plan is here for the Filoni movie, because I really, really liked Ahsoka, and I don't want Filoni's movie weighed down, which is supposed to include a lot of the Mando stuff. I just don't want it weighed down with unnecessary shit.
Yeah. I mean, I guess sort of to wrap this up, this is a question about my own creation in this. Does your opinion change, movie or TV, if they come out and state that this is it for Din and Grogu? Like, this is the Mandalorian story ends here.
I like, the problem with that would be they've already said he's in the movie.
Well,
right?
not so much from a like obviously their continued existence in the universe is still intact. I'm saying like this is it for the Mandalorian as a series finale, as a finale of the Mandalorian as we know. Like, obviously Din and Grogu will carry on because Star Wars only kills you if you're a villain, really.
Can we jump in a DeLorean, go back in time?
No, we can't remove season 3 from existing.
Have them remove season 3 from existence. Not, I
No.
mean, certain events are good in that season, but and keep and when they're at it, go back and also remove Mando and Grogu reuniting at the end of the Book of Boba Fett, because like that was just, I get it. Disney, the report is anyways, Disney interfered a little bit, and they wanted the two together. They didn't want Grogu to have to disappear for a couple of years before coming back. But the truth is, it would have been fucking money if we got to the Filoni movie, and that is when Grogu and Din reunite instead of, okay, well, you guys waited 11 months, and here's a new show. It's not even The Mandalorian, and here they are again.
I kind of like your idea, just because to have Grogu go away for a while and be with Luke and actually train, and then actually make a really severe impact in the movie with the way he just shows up, because, oh look, he actually knows how to wield a lightsaber now and use his force powers a little bit more, and that actually would have been a really hell of a great entrance, to be perfectly honest.
Well, badass.
Let's be honest, we already know from events of the sequel trilogy, Luke bungles the Jedi Order just like the Jedi did in the prequels. So, it's not really a shock that Grogu's training went the way it did. Grogu sat there and was like, wait, I can't have emotional. I've seen this story before. I'm out. I survived the slaying at the temple once. I'm not doing it again. I'm done.
Yeah, fuck you, man. I'm gone.
I'll keep learning how to use the Force on my own. I'm doing just fine. Thank you. Well, all right. You guys sort of shirked that question quite well. I'll give you that. But all right, let's move on to the next topic, and that is they announced that seasons 1 and 2, 3 is noticeable in its absence, will be released on 4K Blu-ray with a steelbook, edition. What are your? We'll save you, Sean, because I know you've got a lot of things to say about this, specifically a certain element of this. Randy, what do you think about this?
See, to me, this feels like a cash grab. See, for me, if I'm going to do something like this, there's always little things I like to have, like bonus features and things like that. And there's a lot of stuff on Disney Plus already in regards to this stuff. So unless it's brand new stuff that's actually going to go more in depth than some things, I mean, it's hit or miss for me. Like I said, I just think it's just a big cash grab.
Sean?
Yeah. Hang on, I'm trying to find something. There we go. To Randy.
I was expecting the no, not the horns.
The no came out a couple times last night. It's tired. Look, steel cases are nice. And hey, we've had people that have been on this channel before who are diehards into physical media. Dean, who does Tonight in Haddonfield with me, is another one he literally has a segment on the show where he shows off a piece of, collector's edition physical media because the guy has so much of it. In a day where physical media is, it's not dead and maybe not even dying, it's certainly shrinking, and the ability to buy it is becoming more difficult. How do you put out these two products that came out in 2019 and 2021, I think? You put out these two products, and the special features is 17 fucking minutes long. 17. That's it. And to Randy's point, there are special features on Disney Plus, but you've had years to do this, years to bring on anybody to come on and talk behind the scenes shit, and you put out the most watered down bullshit possible. It is so typical of Disney and a lot of the stuff that they do nowadays, and when it comes to their physical media. I don't know if you guys own the I go back to the prequel trilogy. I mean, if Johnny owns them, they're probably used as frisbees, but
I bought the saga, so I have them.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
Nice. So I don't know if they're on the saga, but the original DVDs for Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith we're not talking several minutes, we're talking several hours of unique, different extras that bring you through many different aspects of the making of and the story and the set design and the props and you name it, they got it. To a lesser extent, when Star Wars released on DVD for the first time, the original trilogy, it came as a 4-disc set, and the 4th disc was all extras. You got your brand new documentary, which I've watched 10 billion times, and now I can't remember the name of it. But it's 2.5 hours, goes through the making of the prequel trilogy or the original trilogy, and even the sequel trilogy. Me, the guy who's not a big fan of 2 of the sequel movies, The Rise of Skywalker still has, it's a very, very tidy making of, heavily edited and definitely not as raw as the prequel trilogy, but it has, I think, an hour-long making of for The Force Awakens, and then a bunch of other smaller extras. And then you have The Last Jedi. I'm not the biggest fan of that film, but the hour-and-a-half making of special with Rian Johnson and I forget the other guy's name who's his partner, and Mark Hamill's also a heavy part in the making of. It's awesome. And again, it has extras. The Rise of Skywalker and that albatross that we're going to be forced to talk about soon. That even has like a 2-hour making of. We're talking a season of TV where there's literally more content filmed. And in fact, I don't think I have them here. I think they're in the storage unit. But there are art books, which also serve as making of books for The Mandalorian season 1 and 2. So it's not like the content doesn't exist. It does. This was a pure cash grab. And I fucking hate it.
Amazing how it's just in time for Christmas. Of course it is. That's how you get it sold.
I mean, I'm old enough to have bought the first 2 part of the prequel trilogy on VHS, so I never got those special features. But
that's a lie. That is a lie, because the Attack of the Clones, that's right, the Attack of the Clones VHS, for whatever fucked up reason, at the beginning of the VHS, you can fast forward if you want, it has a C-3PO and R2-D2 take you through all 5 movies, in which spoils the events of the movie that you're about to watch while watching.
That was short.
Yeah, it was like 10 minutes or something, but there were special features.
I didn't say there were no special features. I meant the depth of them.
I haven't watched I own them, but I haven't watched the 97 special editions of Star Wars in a long time. And I'm pretty sure those movies, too, at the beginning have special features.
I thought they were at the end.
It might be at the end, but I'm pretty sure on the VHSs they exist with George Lucas and Rick McCallum, but they're a little more in-depth than the prequel ones.
Yeah, you're definitely right. I remember them, but I can't remember if they were at the beginning or the end. But they do exist. I certainly remember seeing them.
To play devil's advocate before you give your 2 cents, though, the one thing this does give, and I don't care what kind of computer you have, what kind of files you have, streaming something, even downloading something and playing it on your computer, you will never get the same visual quality that you get out of physical media. But is that worth you spending however godly amount of money they want for these? I think I've seen 45 Canadian, maybe it's 45 American. I don't know. But you know, if that does it for you, then maybe that's enough for you to buy this in the steel case. Sorry.
No, I mean, I think we've pretty much said everything that needs to be said about this. It's for some people this is a great thing, but for a lot of other people it's just you'll see it on the shelf at Best Buy and walk right by it, type of thing.
So the Ultra 4K HD Blu-ray is at Walmart for $46 for season 1.
So like 65 Canadian, probably.
There you go.
And the Blu-ray itself, without the 4K, is $40. So you're going to pay for it one way or another.
Well, I mean, that's comparable for season of TV prices. So it's not out of pocket for what it's offering.
It's better than what it used to be, where it's like a season would drop and $60 for the whole season. It's like now they're a little more reasonable compared to what they used to be.
I've gotten to the point in life where I'm like, I'll wait until the series is canceled and just buy the whole series box set. Thank you.
Not a bad way to go.
Or you can kick yourself in the ass and buy the $250 special edition that shoots up in value and is now worth like $2,500, and you realize that fuck, I took it out of the box. I never should have done that.
I'd say that's why you buy 2, but money doesn't grow on trees. Or does it?
I mean, you never expect special editions to shoot up that much in value. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it'll be, you might get like $25-$50 extra, but to go from 250 to 1,500, that's like, excuse me, that's stock market prices. What is happening? And for the record, I'm referring to the I think it was seasons 1 through 6 Doctor Who box set they released.
I believe I've seen that's coming to Disney Plus.
The 3 specials that just aired this month are on Disney Plus. They have the future rights to streaming for the series, not the past rights. So if you're looking for the older episodes, you're not going to find them there, but the present and future episodes, you will find them there. I know, because that's how I watched the 3 specials this month. But I digress. we have officially downloaded all there is to download from the HoloNet for this week's transmission. Let us now move forth and rank. It is now time to rank Star Wars theatrical released films. Now, traditionally, sometimes you'll see these things done where one person will step up and do their list, and then another person will step up and do their list.
Wait. Do that intro again. I was muted and realized you guys didn't hear shit.
Well, now see, that was a cuff intro. I can't redo that intro. I don't even remember half of what I said at the start. It is now time to rank the Star Wars theatrically released films. That's as close as we're going to get to me doing it over again. All right, guys, I know traditionally some places you'll see, one host will step up and do their list, and another host will step up and do their list. But, well, where's the fun in that? It's boring. It's dull. So, we're going to do it in a more round-robin-y shape. The order being decided completely at random in my head right now. We're going to start with Randy, and then I'm going to go, and then Sean's going to round us out. You got that?
Alrighty then.
All right, so we will be obviously starting at the bottom because nobody wants to start at the top. And we are going to rank our Star Wars, the Star Wars theatrically released films. This is obviously 1 through 9, Solo, Rogue One, and the Clone Wars, bringing us to a grand total of 12 theatrically released films. That is what we're ranking, those 12 films, in the order of your designation, based on your own personal criteria, be they best, favorite, or some combination thereof. Randy, start us at 12.
So for me, I think it's pretty obvious. I've mentioned this movie quite a few different times in some previous episodes, but number 12 for me is definitely The Clone Wars. It's the only Star Wars film I've ever fallen asleep during. That's hard for me to do when it comes to Star Wars, let me tell you.
What don't you like about it?
I just felt like I wasn't a fan of the story. I felt like I knew it was more aimed towards kids, so I understood that part of it, but I was just more excited to see characters that I loved on the screen, animated, doing crazy things. And honestly, because of the story elements, it put me to sleep, and I missed a lot, and I've had to go back and rewatch it and go, oh, okay. But it's still, because of that alone, it's definitely at the bot. It's my number 12 for me.
Well, you can sort of color me shocked by that, if I'm being honest. My number 12, it very simply, for me, it is far and away the worst Star Wars film. There's way too much talking. There was way too much bad talking. And by that, I mean the writing is awful. I feel like a group of monkeys got together and wrote this script. I am referring, of course, to Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. That film is just ass. Just everything about it. Are there redeeming qualities of the film? Maybe a couple. The fight scenes are good, but everything else is just ass. It is hot dog water. It is. If there's a Star Wars film I'm going to fall asleep during, it's this one. Wake me up for the final battle at the end and I'll be happy.
What, you don't want to be woken up during Anakin's speech about sand? Come on now.
I'd hit my head on my desk, but I have a headache, and I don't want to make it worse. But just talking about this film is already making it worse, so that's bad enough for me.
Wow, that's some harsh criticism. I have never seen a movie more in theaters than Attack of the Clones.
I'm sorry for you.
So, I mean, I'll get more into what I like about it later, but that, be honest, when's the last time you watched Attack of the Clones?
5 years ago?
Yeah. I feel like you might have a different stance if you were to watch Attack of the Clones and then Rise of Skywalker. But that's just me.
We'll get to that a bit later, but
Speaking
it
of
was closer than I thought.
Speaking of the Rise of Skywalker, there it is at number 12 for me. It's like there are elements in the movie that are good. There are visuals in this movie that kick ass, just are. And then there's instead of giving us a unique, cool Star Wars type space battle, someone has seen too much Transformers and decided that we needed a billion good guys versus a billion Star Destroyers that can't move. And that's our final aerial battle of the Skywalker saga. It's fucking abysmal. And this is coming from someone that didn't like The Last Jedi when it came out. And I was going to be all gun-ho over just over them doing something different. But then when you realize, no, this is the third act of a 3-act play, which is actually the 9th act of a 9-act play. It's not about doing your own thing. It's about continuing from the previous person or the previous story, and to just disregard that in the most disrespectful way to Rian Johnson. Probably because if you remember the lightsaber.
I mean, Ryan did kind of do it to JJ in the first place.
For sure, absolutely. And I point the finger at Kathleen Kennedy and the heads of Lucasfilm and Disney for not, getting everybody together and trying to map out a plan. We removed a topic from our news reel today, HoloNet. Adam Driver basically outs them again on the sequel trilogy, and which is unfortunate because he's the best part of this movie, in my opinion. It's so bad, and say what you want about again, subjective. If you love the film, fantastic. I envy you. But say what you want about The Last Jedi. Mark Hamill's performance in that movie is fantastic. You might not like decisions that are made with Luke Skywalker. I don't like them all either. But his performance is badass. Total mail-in The Rise of Skywalker. It's only really the one scene. You can tell he's pretty pissed off with where things have gone. And this movie has almost nothing redeeming about it for me, which is unfortunate because this trilogy started with the utmost potential.
Yeah. I mean, you said it all. All right, those are our 12s. Randy, start us at number 11.
So it's funny because my number 11 was Rise of Skywalker. So I'll try to add to this as best I can. I just felt like the story was disjointed. I didn't like some of the decisions they made. Obviously, there were really some really cool scenes here and there. I enjoyed the Kylo Ren Rey duel. I thought that was actually really well done. But yeah, there was just, I felt like it was rushed, and that they were trying to do was just cover up what they thought was messed up. They were trying to, redo everything. And it just doesn't work in this small movie. If you were going to try to do all that, you needed more time. And obviously JJ it was too tall of a task for him to do that. Obviously we got one of our favorite memes out of this movie. I mean, I get it. They tried to take the whole thing with Palpatine from Legends, and bring it back to the forefront, but it just didn't work. And they did. It's a shame they didn't stick the landing the way they did, because now we've had a huge drought of movies because of this. So, but that's basically one of my main reasons why it's number 11 on my list.
Yeah, I mean, there has been a drought. There hasn't been a movie since, and I know you're referring to Dark Empire there. Well, Dark Empire takes time to tell a story and why people are in the places that they're in. The shoehorning Leia into it too was, don't get me wrong, God bless Carrie Fisher, but it takes me out of the movie. Like, maybe some people think it was a good job, but like, you can very clearly tell it's other people acting around a person that is not there, and they should have just found a way to do something else or less of her.
I mean, yeah. Number 11 is simply for me. If you see the private chat, you see that message I sent there? Okay, so I'm gonna let the screen do the talking for my number 11. It is The Rise of Skywalker, and the screen will explain why. That's it. Enough said. Randy alluded to it, and I'm like, seriously, is he about to take my answer? And just like kind of run it, but no, he didn't. This is my answer. That's why it's number 11. It almost made it to number 12 because of that, but my visceral hatred of Attack of the Clones refused to allow me to drop it that far. But it came close. But seriously, though, beyond just the shoehorned, ham-fisted, sorry excuse of a villain they turned Palpatine into, which could have been great. Like, there were a lot of things left on the table that we heard about in the rumors, specifically Matt Smith.
He was actually cast. It's not like they were looking at him. He was literally cast in the fucking role.
It wasn't a fan like, oh man, wouldn't it be great if Matt Smith played a young Palpatine? No, it was actually planned. I don't want to say filmed, but it was planned. It was scripted, and I believe contracts were signed. Like, this isn't just a pie in the sky thing that the fans came up with and said, man, it would be so great if this had. No, this was real, and they just decided to leave it on the floor for whatever god awful reason they came up with. But beyond that, I love Carrie Fisher. I love Princess. I love everything about her, but every time you see her on the screen, you can tell contextually that she obviously did not film any of this for this purpose, because acting is such a large part of acting is subtext and context. And everything they reused of her from past films was contextually and subjectively for different purposes. It just didn't fit in what they were trying to achieve with the story. And while I'll give them their props for, getting her in the story in such a way that it still fit within the story they were telling, but it didn't make the story better in such a way that it was, I don't want to say detrimental to it, because there are so many issues with this film that is probably pretty low on the list for me of issues, but it just, it took you out of it knowing that she didn't film any of this stuff for this purpose. And, as much as some people want to call, it's a love letter to Carrie Fisher, we had to have, no, you didn't. It's could have just as, like, I don't want to say like, oh, an off-screen death would have just been so dirty but it wouldn't. It really wouldn't have. If anything, it could have been bigger and more important.
Not to mention, she flew out of a fucking ship the movie before in space.
Yeah.
It's also like, hey, that took its toll. The Luke appearing across the galaxy in visual form took its toll.
Like, did we not literally, like, I have to go back. It's been a while since I've watched these, which is saying something, but did we not end 8 basically with her and Rey on the Falcon and her, like, basically being, I don't want to say near death, but she was very not at 100% at that point?
Well, she had just come out of the coma that she was in, and they were
Yeah.
and they were on the planet, and then exactly.
Exactly.
So
So
she wouldn't be.
You could just as easily have filmed a scene with Rey and maybe Luke as a Force ghost, explaining that she used, the last of her connection to the Force to get this far. Like her story is completed, and she is one with the Force now. Like, you could just as easily have done that, and it still could have been a love letter to Carrie that would have fit perfectly within the context of the story, that would have been easily explained as part of the story, and not have, the debacle that came after it. Like, sure, you could say, oh, but you would have had Luke in there, and it wouldn't have been as significant. But let's be honest, I think you would have got a much greater performance out of Mark Hamill tapping his own emotions around Carrie passing away than all of the manufactured Carrie Fisher scenes they actually had in the film.
Well, and think about the emotional punch you could have started the film with, because if you're trying to say, The Last Jedi is your Empire Strikes Back of this trilogy, then you really could have had the heroes reeling at the beginning of this film. You have Luke's Force Ghost probably training Rey, and then them going, seeing her get close to the dark side because of the sorrow that she was feeling. Because as we've seen, Yoda made it quite clear in Empire Strikes Back, they're parts of the living force. If something happens, don't mourn them, just celebrate the fact that they're one with the Force. But because of Rey's advanced age, it would have been more impactful because she wouldn't have understood how to deal with her grief in terms of letting go. And that would have been made for a more interesting story.
It would have made the Kylo story so much more powerful, I think.
Well, his anger through her loss as well would have been...
Exactly. Like, if you have him off the top of, like, if you're going to play the redemption story that they did throughout the course of this film, it is so much more powerful if at the beginning of the film, he feels the death of his mother through the Force. She used the last of her Force to reach out one last time to her son. And that sort of sets him on his redemption path that he goes on, which sort of culminates with his face-to-face with his father, whom he killed. Like, it adds so much more power to that I think would have served the character so much better than the half-assed garbage that they gave him. But we could keep going about 9 all night, and eventually we probably will. So we're still on number 11. Okay, Sean, what's your number 11?
One that we've already talked about, the Clone Wars. I remember when I seen this movie. I remember the people I went with, and I didn't have super high expectations. Like, we knew the TV show was in development, and it would be out, I believe, the following year. And I don't know. I just it's not bad, but it's just kind of there. Like, when you think Clone Wars, one of the last things you're going to think about is this movie. So, and yet they tell a story mainly about Jabba's son being kidnapped and Ahsoka being introduced. That at least connects from beginning to end, and you don't go, wait, what? Huh? Who? How? What? Maul returned somehow? No, that happened later.
That's another film.
Another movie. Another show, too. But yeah, Clone Wars, man. I don't have too much to say other than it's for kids. Not the show in general, but just this movie was not the best of light to shine on the Clone Wars series, anyway.
All right, number 10. Randy, what you got for us?
So, my number 10, we've already discussed this before. My number 10 is actually Attack of the Clones. Like you, Johnny, the dialogue and things like that, we can always go on and on about sand, how it's coarse and rough and gets everywhere, but let's not do that. Like I said, the highlights of this, obviously, for me are obviously is the duel at the end, showcasing Anakin and Dooku, but then getting to see Yoda actually duel for the first time, like that was probably the one moment that I just literally screamed out loud, "Holy shit!" Because we never seen it before, and so that was definitely the real highlight. One thing another thing we learned is Lucas definitely does not know how to do romance, and he should stay as far away from it as humanly possible.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, my number 10 is the Clone Wars. It's nothing special. It's a TV movie to introduce you to characters they're launching a TV show of. It was what it was. It wasn't good, it wasn't great, but it wasn't awful either, like the previous two entries on this list for me. So, it exists, and for that, it is penalized with the number 10 spot on my list. Sean?
I mentioned to Johnny before the show that when I was doing my list, I totally forgot if we were talking about what Star Wars films we think are the best or which ones are the favorite or our favorites, which aren't necessarily the same thing. I think you can see a film and go, this is an incredibly well-made, really good film. It's just not for me. And that's what this next film is for me is it's grown on me a little bit over time, or else it'd be number 12 on my list. But and hey, the cinematography in The Last Jedi is the best of the sequel trilogy. The sound design of The Last Jedi is the best of the sequel trilogy. The set design of The Last Jedi is also the best of the sequel trilogy. So there's a lot of bests here in this movie, in my opinion. Again, subjective, just an opinion. But I don't know. I just I really think that The Last Jedi is it's a really, really, honestly fantastic made movie, or fantastically made movie. Pardon me. I'm just not sure it's the best Star Wars movie, and I still feel that way today. So The Last Jedi comes in at number 10. Hey, it made the top 10. Only 12 movies, but it made the top 10.
All right. It's time for single digits. Barely single digits. But number 9.
So my number 9 just happens to be The Last Jedi. Obviously, I had issues with Canto Bight. I had issues with them, what they did with Luke. I was definitely not a fan of Snoke meeting his end the way he did, because I felt like it's like Snoke, we hardly knew ye. But there was so much. There was a lot of really cool stuff in there, like the throne room fight was just beautifully choreographed. Never seen anything like it in Star Wars, which was obviously something that made me pop. I feel like they wasted a lot of characters. Phasma got wasted, Finn got wasted, the unnecessary thing with Rose. But ultimately, when you look at the film itself, it is actually a really well-made film. It's just like Sean was saying, it's not a good Star Wars film. It just isn't.
All right. For me, again, Sean kind of already used this one. It made the top 10. This one is how I feel about that one. My number 9 is The Phantom Menace. Again, it does certainly have its redeeming qualities. Obviously, the battle at the end is just amazing. And obviously, Liam Neeson is great throughout. But there's so much in this film that just was, for me, like, I could do without the pod racing story. There's so much of it that's just sort of there. And It just, I don't like it. Like everything felt like. I think part of it is they did too much background with Maul. Like he was in the background so much. He had, at the end of the day, he had so little actual screen time. That's shocking for a villain, despite how great of a performance was put out there. It also introduced us to some god awful characters. You know, I don't need to comment on the Gungans. I'm not going to. I'm going to leave them somewhere, preferably in another universe, and forget that they exist. But, it just there's so much about this film that I didn't like, I didn't enjoy. And so much of it to me was just sort of, I don't want to say unbelievable, but, it just like the start was great, the end was great, everything in the middle was just present. Sean, what is your number 9?
First of all, how dare you? Honestly, actually, I have to look down at my list. Honestly, the Phantom Menace. I mean, I'll talk about it later. But if there's like one Star Wars film that has gone from like way down on my list to it climbed way higher over time than I thought it ever could, it's the Phantom Menace for me. But I do agree with your take that the middle of the movie, which is kind of supposed to be the meat, is the weaker part of the movie. But the pod racing was revolutionary to its time.
Oh, visually, absolutely.
Nothing done like that before, sound design wise. Give me the long version of that all the time. The long version should have been in the theatrical version, but that's just me.
I'll agree with you visually, but thematically, it served nothing to the overall story.
Jake Lloyd hater.
I do not. I like Jake Lloyd. This is another one of those. George Lucas is a horrible writer.
Arnold movie doesn't count. Forget what that's called now.
It's Jingle All the Way.
Jingle All the Way. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, it absolutely counts. Arnold and Sinbad is a great film. Okay.
Oh, it's a good film. I'm just saying, it's Arnold and Sinbad. They do such a good job in that movie that, there's not as much weight put on Jake's shoulders in that movie.
No, there's not.
My number 9, Solo. It's weird because honestly, Solo gets the 9th spot over The Last Jedi simply based on it didn't do a whole lot to piss me off. Visually it's good. I'm okay with Alden Ehrenreich as Han. It's a much younger Han Solo. Living up to Harrison Ford was always going to be impossible. I enjoyed this movie. And yet I haven't watched this movie in probably 4 years. So it exists. It's a Star Wars movie. I still would have liked to see what the original intention for this movie was.
Give me the Miller and Lloyd cut. That's what I say. All right, number 8.
So this is where, and I made the message last night, I was like, this is where I got stuck. I had 2 movies that, like, I rewrote my list. I'm like flip-flopping it. I'm just sitting here going, where do I go here? Because really we're getting to the point where the movies are starting to get good, and it was really hard for me to do this, but for me, and I know Sean's going to be kind of probably surprised with this, but I'm actually going to go, my number 8 is going to be The Phantom Menace.
I thought you were going to say Empire is going to be like, that's it. We're done. Not doing this anymore. Goodbye.
Oh yeah. Randy would be fired if he had.
Trust me, if I was going to try to get fired, that would have been, I'd have put that at 12. But anyway, for me, The Phantom Menace, and it's not, when I look back and think about it, it really was the middle that really kind of just, the dialogue wasn't great. There was a lot of just not pacing issues, and just it was really slow at times. We could have done with a lot of the Senate crap that really we didn't need that much. But when you look at what it did right, um, the epic duel, the Battle of the Fates, the music, the choreography, that's got to be, right. That's like top three lightsaber duels for me. Um, but also, I really enjoyed the pod racing scene. I liked the use of the music. I liked how they utilized it to showcase Anakin having, having the Force. Let's not use the M word because that's just sacrilegious. But still, it's one of those things where it's yeah, that's why it falls there, because that whole middle part where there's just a lot of stuff that just kind of drags on. Now, don't get me wrong, the scenes with Sam Jackson were fairly decent, but we all know he's had better scenes. But yeah, that's just where lies for me, unfortunately.
I kept getting very confused hearing you talk and looking at my screen and seeing the solo graphic still on the screen. My brain sort of took me a second to catch up to that. I'm like, wait, what? Huh? Now you change it.
Oh, I'm trying to multitask here with that graphic to keep up with your guys' picks.
All right, guys. As you can see, if you're watching us live, we're gonna take a few minutes here just to, take a few minutes to catch up with the chat. It's been pretty lively this evening. So if you're watching us live during this recording, you'll understand. We're just take a few minutes to chat catch up with the YouTube. If you're watching this later, this is a reason to be part of the live chat. You can be a part of the show, as it were, and we'll read your comments and discuss things.
Most of our audience has been coming in after the fact too. I've noticed on the view count. So not that you guys don't matter as much, just it'd be fun if you guys can come out live and interact with us.
Leave more comments if you're not here with us during the live recording.
For sure. Where are we here? Martin McAllister says hello from Martinsburg, West Virginia. Martin McAllister from Martinsburg. That's a mouthful. How do
Martin from Martinsburg. That's
something.
I don't know if I'd want to be named after the city I'm living in. Like that would be
I'd go nuts. I'd trip over my words all the time.
It's as bad as if you went to Martinsburg Elementary.
Kudos to you, Martin. He also said the Geonosis arc kind of gave me PTSD when I was rewatching the Clone Wars. He said he served 2 tours in Afghanistan. Appreciate your service, sir. Travis would place the Phantom Menace above Empire.
I'm glad I'm not in the chat. I might have actually banned somebody for that comment.
I'm hurting, man.
Although I don't want to say you redeemed yourself, but you've solved my wounds. The wounded warrior is solved.
This guy.
Yeah, I mean you're not wrong. For the purpose of the story, I can understand that. It does nothing to move the story forward.
Martin says Solo is a good movie.
You're not wrong.
Travis says, for me, holiday special. Oh, man.
The one thing I hope we never watch.
Let me tell you, there's a much better chance of us watching the holiday special than Caravan of Courage, in my opinion, anyway. Travis,
come on now, the Ewok movies were good.
Travis sent in a $5 super chat, but there's no question or comment with it.
Well, we appreciate it either way.
Yeah, if you want to add something to that, Travis, feel free to do so, like a question or a comment or whatever. Not more fun. Didn't mean it in that way.
I just read the next comment.
Oh, God.
The way Luke looks in that movie is just
The hell were they thinking?
no idea. No idea.
Somebody with much better editing skills than I am needs to take every scene of Luke from the Christmas special and edit it to "I'm just Ken," or somebody just like give us our own parody version of "I'm just Luke."
Oh God. It's out there on the internet. Someone will do it now eventually.
I hope so. Luke is definitely enough.
Oh God. Oh Jesus.
I love chat on nights like this. I really do.
We're caught up if you want to continue. I don't know where we are. So
Okay. Where were we? I believe it is my 8. I believe that's
Yep.
where we were, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you just did your 8. I'm so, Travis.
You know what? I'm kind of surprised he didn't either. It was right there. It was right for the picking.
I'm now hearing a Knights of I'm now hearing a Knights of Ren version of I'm just Ken, and I love it. That's bravo to you, sir. Bravo. All right, my number 8. Oh man. Yeah. Okay. My number 8 is The Last Jedi. It made it higher on this list than I thought it would, if I'm being honest. But then so did The Phantom Menace. So for me, everything we said about this, it's a great film, but it's a horrible Star Wars film. And that literally just puts it right in sort of this middle of the pack. You know, we're sort of in that area for me where it's not. This is the last film for me where everything after this is sort of the list may vary depending on my mood portion of the list. So this one, just there was so much of it that was just not good, right? Like it was just didn't fit with the flow of the story. They wasted so many characters, like I believe both Randy and Sean have said, but there's so much more they could have done with other characters that they didn't. I mean, we've already talked about Canto Bite, but specifically for me, it's DJ. That's the biggest waste of a casting I have seen in a very long time period. You know, you cast somebody with that skill level and then do nothing with them it was a waste. Overall, the movie was not good, but it wasn't so bad that I can point to it and be like, oh God, I'm never going to watch you. Because despite the fact it was not a good Star Wars film, it was still a good film. You know, visually and cinematography was great. The action scenes were good. You know, was it the Red Room? You know, with the Praetorian guards. Yeah. You know, I mean, despite how bad they did, despite how dirty they did Snoke, that scene was amazing. That battle was amazing. There's so much could-haves and should-haves and would-haves with this film that it just puts it at the bottom of this tier for me. But it's at the highest of the I do not like these films tier. Sean, you're number 8.
My number 8 is Return of the Jedi. And honestly, if I had not seen that movie this year in theaters, I don't think it would be this high on my list. I've never been the biggest Jedi fan. I'll be
Of
honest.
course you haven't.
I ha ha ha. I look. People say they can go without the Tatooine stuff in the Phantom Menace. Although I think it's perfectly relevant. I mean, the Chosen One's there. Doesn't come off the best at times, and Jar Jar.
I know Qui-Gon should have had such a bigger impact in the franchise.
Uh, um, but like you can lose Tatooine from Return of the Jedi, in my opinion. I know they had to go there for Han, but like it does nothing for me even to this day. Until they get to the point where they break it out, basically. It just feels like it stalls and drags, and thankfully we get a couple of cuts to Vader and the Imperials, the good guys.
Hey, preteen me loved that opening, okay? Especially that poster, you know?
That one? No, I know what one you're talking about.
No, not that one. You know exactly which one I'm talking about. Because you had it on your wall for a great many years.
Someone might have had it on his bedroom wall. I love
I wonder which poster that might have been.
Number 7. Randy, start us off.
So my number 7 is going to be Solo. I actually really enjoyed this movie in theaters. I've actually watched it quite a few different times. I get why it got the hate that it did. It actually, I think if they had actually pushed the release date out a little bit further, it might have not been as big of a financial disaster as it was at the time. But I liked how they gave you a young Han Solo, but like, an energetic, go-getter who has a positive outlook on everything before he finally got to the point where he just got tired of getting screwed over, and we got the Han we got in the OG trilogy. But I also enjoyed a lot of the fly, like when he finally got a chance to fly the Falcon the first time. I got that Star Wars feel, like just watching him fly the Falcon with Chewie. The feeling I got from that was amazing. Obviously, we got some surprises with having Maul show up, and I kind of wish we would have gotten more to learn more about Kira, but I don't have a ton really bad to say about this. It's just I feel like there were some wasted things with it, and I felt like they could have tightened some things up in the story. But other than that, I just overall had fun with this movie. I don't really have a whole lot bad to say about it.
Yeah, it's also my number 7. So I don't really have a lot more to add. I mean, this one, it had so much potential for me when it was first announced. I love Miller and Lord. I think they would have I think they could have done a great Han Solo story. If there's any character that fits their style, it's Han Solo. I think they could have done a great version of the story, but this was the first time where we sort of had that big overarching Kathleen Kennedy and corporate interference in this film. I think was probably the worst, in my personal opinion. But there was so much great in this, so much potential. Like, let's be honest, Woody Harrelson is just...
Beckett was a great character.
This is his movie, as much as anyone else's. Donald Glover, such a great performance. Everybody put in great performances in this. It's just, there was so much untapped potential in this story, so much that sort of required follow-ups that we never got. Like that Darth Maul cameo promised so much more than what we got, that I think had this film been properly followed up on, I think it might have even been higher for me. Because of that, this was a great... There were so many great performances enshrouded in this film that it made up for a lot of the sort of misgivings I had about it watching it, and watching it in the theaters was a great experience for me because of, not the film itself, just the experience around it. It was basically a 3-day event for us up here, that time. We were hosted, that was at the time we were on 1138. That was when the big, channel viewing event came north of the border, and we actually got to attend that one. So it was a 3-day event for us. We did a Blue Jays game and got to watch that future trader Shohei Ohtani actually play, and Hockey Hall of Fame, just all those things around it increase my viewing experience for this. But had they followed up on it, I think it would have been higher. But because it was a one and done and hidden in the depths of crap that came after it, and so much drama behind it, that it puts it here sort of at the bottom of this mid-tier. And if you ask me to make this list tomorrow or in a week, it might even be higher. But right now, this is where it sits for me.
Yeah, I didn't mention that when I brought Solo up, but like the events that we got to go through during that time definitely added to the enjoyability of watching that movie.
Absolutely.
Actually, before I go any further, Johnny, what was your 8?
My 8 was The Last Jedi.
Okay, thank you. All right, my number 7 is Attack of the Clones. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I was probably in love with the movie when I first saw it, simply because I would have been 2002. I'm like 13 or 14 when it came out. Seen it 6 times in theaters. The Anakin Padme stuff doesn't come off the best, but I also think there's an element of it that, so to us, it doesn't come across the best. But I think there's an element to it of it, how George Lucas intended it to be, given Anakin's previous past. But I really enjoyed the. Sorry, 1 second, guys. Sorry, I thought I heard something. No, he's not even out here. But I don't think anyway. Look, I was a little confused with the Anakin Obi-Wan relationship, because we just automatically kicked off to them sort of being at odds, rather than the story one Sir Alec Guinness told us way back in 1977 about him being a good friend, and just the way he tells the story to Luke. I don't know if that was really delivered on screen, but I love the Dick Tracy style detective story that Obi-Wan Kenobi gets in this. We get the this is why I hate flying when he's there. I like the Jango Fett stuff too, man. I think Tamara Morrison is really good in Attack of the Clones. Christopher Lee is also very good in Attack of the Clones, probably underutilized, to be honest. Hayden is a weak point in this movie. I don't think he's anywhere near as strong as he is in Revenge of the Sith, and definitely not in Ahsoka.
Because the writing was so much worse in this film.
Yeah, that's probably fair. But there's just so much I enjoyed about it. And hey, look, we got to see a bunch of Jedi on screen together for the first time, fighting the droid army. And to me, there was an element of that was just fucking awesome.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. Way too high for this film, but I digress. I said all my negatives earlier. I got it out of my system. But we've never agreed on this film, so it's not surprising for me. Number 6, Randy.
Wow, got through the half it already. All right, well, my number 6 is Rogue One. I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was the fact that we got a war film, so to speak, in many when you really look at it. Obviously, we got little cameos here and there that I kind of caught, like seeing Chopper and them calling for Hera and seeing the ghost, stuff like that. I picked out those things. I was like, yep, I was all for that. But like the story overall, it's one of those things where you have to look at it and go, how do you give us characters that aren't going to survive? And I feel like they did a really good job of at least endearing the characters to it, enough that I felt like, okay, I'm actually attached. My favorite character in this film is Chirrut Imwe. I just love the way Donnie Yen portrayed that character. It was absolutely amazing. And of course, obviously, Andor was an interesting character that I didn't think we were going to get a series out of, but obviously we've seen where that's gone. But overall, I don't have a lot of negatives for this film. I feel like, obviously we've got the most badass hallway scene in a film with Vader, because that's Prime Vader. This is something we've always wanted to see him do. And then, of course, Mando season 2, Luke says, "Hold my beer." But like I said, I don't really have anything bad to say about this film, because we're getting to the point where these films are just good. And but that's why I picked it at 6, because we really didn't get to spend as much time with these characters as I kind of wish we could have.
So, fun fact to the question on screen, or the comment on screen: the beginning of the Rise of Skywalker is on Mustafar and is just outside of Vader's castle. That's where he gets is it the Wayfinder? Is that what it is? The Wayfinder from. You need to read the making of / art book, and I think they also detail it in some behind the scenes stuff too. Just letting you guys know the wind is getting really bad outside. So if I get disconnected, just continue.
If you drop out, we'll make do. The screen will look awkward because we don't have control of that, but we'll deal with that as we get to it. Number 6 for me is Return of the Jedi. And again, like I said, we're sort of in that portion where, as the wind blows, so does this list. Depending on the mood, the week, and the day, how recently I've watched it, or how recently I've thought about it, or how recently I've thought about Carrie Fisher in that bikini, depends on the ranking of this film. But there's so much
sick man. You.
Oh yeah, because I'm so much different than so many other people.
Guilty as charged.
I would never display a photo of her like that over my bed.
Never,
except for the 15 years you did. But I digress. Like you said, there's so much about that beginning. Slave Leia bikini aside, there was so much of that opening sequence on Tatooine that was just sort of dull until we get over the sands on that skiff. So much of it was just sort of unnecessary, but I like it. I like the film. I can live without the Ewoks, but I mean, at the time I saw this film, the first time I can vividly remember watching it was when the special editions were released in 97. So, I mean, I was 9 years old. I was in the age where I liked the Ewoks. It was appropriately aged for me when I first saw it. So, like, okay, I'm a kid. I like the Ewoks, whatever. But I enjoyed it. I like the story. I like the culmination of it. Vader's redemption. I liked that. I don't like how George has continued to edit it over the years. Stop doing that, George. Period. I'm glad he sold the film so that he can no longer do that.
You mean you didn't like this being in the film?
Well, no, I liked that in the film because that wasn't in this film. But I didn't like what George did to this film when he added.
No. I meant the part at the end where Luke's getting Force lightning.
Yeah, I know, but I'm referring to the actual sound clip, not the words of the sound clip.
So what you're saying is we need a sound clip of that?
No.
Got it. I'll work on it.
No.
Next thing you know, we're going to get Revenge of the Sith Vader screaming no.
Oh, you're getting something special tonight, but I'm not saying what.
But it's just this. I enjoyed the film. I liked it. I liked the little bits and the little pieces. It was a great film. I enjoyed it. I love it. It's my number 6. Sean, wrap up the sixes.
Well, sir, you ruined it because my number 6 is Rogue One, and I got to tell you, when this movie first came out, I probably would have bet a lot of money that this movie would be towards the bottom of my list. I think I fell victim of reading a lot of the critics' reviews of it, people calling it the best Star Wars movie ever made after they've seen it. I got to tell you, if you take the 5 Star Wars theatrical films that have come out from Disney, Rogue One, in terms of just quality of movie, all things put in, is probably, in fact, the best of the movies. It's not my favorite, but it's probably the best of the movies. It's the only movie in the Disney era that even comes close to getting space combat right. So thank you for that. But as Randy said earlier, it's a movie where we meet protagonists, and basically every one of them dies, and they die in a fitting fashion. I would have personally had Vader have a little more to say with one or two of their deaths personally. But like, the visuals in this movie are great. The story in this movie is really good. And this, along with The Phantom Menace, are definitely the 2 movies that have grown the most on me, anyways, for Star Wars over the last half a decade.
All right, guys. We are now into the top 5.
Ooh, yeah.
Alrighty then. So number 5 for me is going to be The Force Awakens. And a lot of this has to do with the fact is the excitement of having Star Wars come back. The fact that my friends decided to make an event out of it, buying out an entire theater so we could all enjoy it. And the fact that even though it's, remember berry, though it's nostalgia and almost a rehash of A New Hope, it was done well enough that that stuff didn't faze me. That I got to go back to that galaxy far, far away and get to see some of the characters I grew up watching that I loved. I could have done with more Luke than what we got in this movie, but beyond that, I felt like this had so much potential to set up something special. And we saw what happened with the next 2 films in the trilogy, that, they wasted it. And if it sounds like that they didn't even go through with what they originally planned, which is a bummer. I want to see what they originally planned. But I really don't have anything, like I said, I don't have anything bad to say about this film. It hit me emotionally in the right spots when I went and saw it. Harrison Ford got exactly what he wanted. And, that it's interesting how when you look back at this film and you watch it, and there's little things that you kind of catch here and there, the use of the lighting and things like that, especially like when at the end you see this scene with Kylo Ren, that the light is on him where he's struggling with what to do with Han. And then all of a sudden the light fades and you see nothing but red. And that's when he makes the decision. And it's like that was that decision where he decides he's going to kill his father. So it's like just little things like that you tend to notice that just make this film really good. And I'm really sad that we never got to see what it really was supposed to be.
Forever one of the biggest blunders in Hollywood history, the follow-ups to this film, in my opinion. So
Hard to argue that statement.
And they punted it.
Hard to argue that statement. All right, number 5 for me is Rogue One. It's a story I didn't expect to like as much as I did. It was, the film gets a lot of negativity about it because there are definitely negatives about it. The production was mired in chaos, and its release was obviously mired in heartbreak, and it just, like, it was literally the day the film came out that Carrie passed away. Like, it was just the timing was just unfortunate, like as far as that went. But the actual movie is shockingly good. The performances from most of the characters I thought was great. It is unfortunate that for me as a viewer, the one character that doesn't hold up is the one you centered the marketing and everything around. If there's one character in this film that coming out of it, I was like, you weren't the best part of this. It was Jin. And Felicity Jones, I like Felicity, but, you know, as Hollywood has sort of proven, she's not the leading lady in an ensemble cast, and that's fine. She's still a good actor, but being the focus of this franchise just did not work for her and her style. But all of the other characters, Cassian showed us that dark side of the Rebel Alliance that we'd never seen before. And that was such an interesting experience because, you sort of get this gilded image of the rebels in your head that they're the good guys, always doing things in the light, that now you get to see that, sometimes the good guys got to do bad things. And it was great to finally see a character play that way. And then, of course, K2, great performance. Alan Tudyk, love Alan Tudyk. That man can do no wrong in my eyes. I think he's phenomenal. But then you've got, Chirrut and Baze. Like, that's not a grouping I expected to love like I did. Like, even in the previews for it, I was like, okay, that's fine. But, like, Chirrut, I thought, was an amazing character. And so was... and so was Baze. Like, they had an undeniable chemistry about the two of them that was so much better than I thought. And all of the other characters were great. And, of course, I don't need to talk about the villains in this story. It was the closest we've gotten to sort of that full-on Peter Cushing, imperial villain that we've ever seen. And this was also the first time we got to see the the technology where, character replacement, right, where we actually had Peter Cushing there. So there was
and that was done right.
Yes, very much so.
The lighting really made a difference because when you saw Carrie Fisher versus Peter Cushing, it was night and day. You could you could almost couldn't even tell that it was CG because of the way the shadowing effects they used versus being on the Tantive 4. Unfortunately, there's so much white on that it just kind of was like, yep, that's CG, all right.
Mm-hmm. And Ben Mendelsohn played against the technology so much better, in my estimation, because it was done so differently than what they would end up doing with Carrie. And of course Mads Mikkelsen. I love Mads, but yeah, I mean, I can't really add much more than that. Sean?
Number 5, right?
Yes.
All right. Midichlorians for life, people. Phantom Menace. We've talked about it on this channel. I really think, for me anyways, if you guys can remove yourselves from the hype when this movie came out, great. But to this day, there has never been, this includes The Force Awakens, the hype around a future Star Wars movie like there was for The Phantom Menace. You could not go anywhere without running face first into something from this movie. And I thought that was badass because, I'm not sure how old Randy is. I think he's around our age. So my guess, no, a little older.
A little bit.
Um,
A little? Are we? We're being awfully generous, aren't we?
Thanks. I appreciate it.
I'm sorry, but didn't you tell us you were like 10 when Jedi came out?
No, I was actually 5 when Return of the
Okay,
Jedi
I,
came
I
out.
knew it was something like that, but it's
but
still.
do you remember any of Jedi from when you were 5? Like, do you
Yes.
remember? Okay, so that's a little bit different. Like for Johnny and I,
Yeah.
although it doesn't hold the same weight for him, clearly, it was the first Star Wars movie I got to go see in theaters that was new, right? Like it was this surreal experience that my parents cheaped out on and took us to a drive-in because it was cheaper and the screen quality wasn't very good. But it's a story for
Hey,
another
now
time.
drive-ins are great.
Drive-ins are great, but not for blockbuster films. I'm sorry, just the technology is not there for them. And the score for this movie when it came out, and I don't just mean Duel of Fates, might have been the best all around from start to finish score in a Star Wars movie. So say what you want about the movie, but John Williams shows up with his fucking A game in this thing.
John Williams always shows up with his A game.
We just spoke about the Rise of Skywalker and the Last Jedi. I think that could be debated.
Okay, that's very old man John Williams. That doesn't count. That's John Williams cashing a paycheck.
He's doing it for the money. Oh man, I don't know. I love this movie. I love the idea that there's this chosen one, and by sort of pure, at least it would seem pure dumb luck, they arrive on his doorstep. But the will of the Force, and obviously, I think the biggest detractor from this movie for a lot of people is Jar Jar Binks, and it's hard to separate him from ruining certain parts of this movie, frankly. It's not all bad with Jar Jar. There's just too much. Like George obviously fell in love with Ahmed Best's performance. If you watch the making of, you can very much tell that. I just think I'm not even saying you don't even need to cut him back like 80 or 90% or 70%. I think if you had 30% less Jar Jar in this film, the film would be received way better by most people. But I love this film, and I'm not going to apologize for it. One of the best lightsaber duels in history, too, by the way.
Agreed on that for sure.
I mean, Randy,
all right.
this is the last film that didn't make the podium. This is the last film where I think this can go a lot of different ways. But
it will, for sure.
Generally, I think, with one exception, I think the top 4 is pretty consistent between the three of us. Where they rank in amongst that top 4?
With the exception, I think, of one movie.
I believe it is just the one. But, I guess this one is the difference. It's yours, Randy. So
for me, number 4 for me is Revenge of the Sith. And I remember being in the theater, getting to start with the space battle. That was just, I loved it. And it hit the ground running. Getting to see Grievous and getting to see the dichotomy of Anakin and Obi-Wan and how they'd grown since Attack of the Clones, which was leaps and bounds way above what it was. But obviously I can still say this, it has the greatest lightsaber duel ever at the end of the film. To the point where, and of course, watching just the dissension and watching how the Jedi fall and watching how Palpatine just expertly moves in between everything and just gets Anakin to his side. I liked those aspects of it. I liked how dark the film was for a Star Wars film at the time. Obviously, with Rogue One, we got dark as well there too, but this just brought it to a whole new level. The writing was better. The acting was better. The dialogue was much better. Ewan McGregor's performance after the duel was just, I mean, I got up in my emotions because of it, even though I knew, Obi-Wan was going to win and Anakin was going to fall. It didn't matter because the performance was there, and I could watch this movie every day and still feel the same every time I watch it. That's how much I really enjoyed this film.
Interesting placement of that film. Number 4 for me is The Force Awakens. There was so much potential coming out of this film. Like when we ranked it initially, like that night, I think I might have even had it as high as my number 2. But recency bias has played a big fact in this film dropping. But there's so much about it that I enjoyed. I think this was obviously Kylo's best performance in a film. This is probably Rey's best story in a film, and you had Han, a peak Han Solo. Like there's so many quips and lines and things like that from Harrison within this film that make it great. I mean, who doesn't quote some of the things that's not how the Force works. Like there's so many great Han moments in that film that capped his story in a great way, I think, for the character, that I loved it. It was the first film that the hype and the hoopla was significant to me, because I obviously, like Sean said, I remember the Phantom Menace. I remember that the hype building into that was so significant, so huge. But this was different, because it was the first film after we thought we'd seen the last film. Because I mean, for a long time, it didn't seem like we were going to actually get follow-ups, to the original trilogy, and yet we did. And this was them, and I liked it. I enjoyed it. So there was so much significant about this, that it was the first film under the Disney banner. It was a great film. I enjoyed it. I think it was obviously far and away the best of the sequel trilogy of films. Sean, number 4.
Number 4 for me. Apologize for not getting that changed, guys. I'm trying to update the graphics. Number 4 for me is Star Wars. Star Wars. That's what it was called when it first came out. Star Wars: A New Hope. For a lot of people, this is probably their number 1 or their number 2. I don't have any complaints about the film. It moves a little slow in the beginning, obviously, after we leave the Tanta 4. But like Harrison Ford's performance, breakout performance, becomes a star overnight. Carrie Fisher in this movie at a time where Hollywood was full of damsels in distress and not really strong female characters for a good chunk of the time when it came to cinema. Carrie Fisher, shined brightly. Alec Guinness brought a level of professionalism to this film that was matched by no one really on set. And yet this film, Empire of Dreams, by the way, that was the name of the documentary I forgot at the beginning of the episode. If you watch that, this film was a fucking disaster to make. Like it nearly killed George Lucas. And yet it came out and really changed cinema at the time it came out forever. Without A New Hope, there's no Empire. And it's a movie I love and a movie I'll never say no to. And by the way, that obviously the lightsaber battle leaves a lot to be desired. But the space battle on the Death Star, there are flashier space battles in Star Wars, but to me, there are no more intense space battles in Star Wars than that original one we got in that movie.
Hard to argue. All right, guys, it's podium time. There's definitely some interesting podium positions, I think, we're going to see here. So, Randy, Who gets your
So,
bronze medal?
so my number 3, my bronze is actually Star Wars: A New Hope, and part of this probably is because of uh, my age and what Star Wars meant to me growing up as a kid. Because I thoroughly remember having the Millennium Falcon, and we're talking about the OG toys, not this new stuff they've put out recently over the past 20 so years. We're talking like
Kenner, baby, Kenner.
yep.
Built
I
an
had
empire.
I had, I had the X-Wing, had Snowspeeder, I had the Millennium Falcon. I even had like the Stormtrooper blaster case that holds all the figures. I mean, I had that stuff. So Star Wars was a big part of my life growing up. And, you know, uh, like Sean said, the biggest thing for me in this one was actually the battle of the Death Star. That was like the one thing that kind of drew me in the most. Like the space battles. That's how I got sucked into Star Wars. That's how I remembered as a kid growing up, just going, "Oh my god, I would love to be able to do this. This would be absolutely amazing." And as I got older and started to understand the characters a little bit more, just the fact that of one thing, it's like, okay, it's the true hero's journey. It's, you have the old wise man and the young farm boy who turns into the hero. And I was like, it's like anybody, that could be anybody. And as a kid growing up, you're like, wow, that could be me. So it was very relatable when you're a kid watching these for the first time. I have no problems popping this in any day, and I'm excited the fact that next week is going to be when we actually get to do our watch along with this. So I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think I have much to add, except to say that my number 3 is also A New Hope. It was culturally nothing is bigger than this. It created a generation. It made sci-fi great again. Sci-fi as a genre was huge in the 60s. There's no doubt. Lost in Space, Star Trek, it was huge. But as the 70s trickled on, it lost a lot of its sort of, it became a TV thing. You only did that on TV. There weren't huge sci-fi projects in film. But then this happened. Star Wars came around and it changed the game. It changed the game so much that things following it created empires. There's so much that Star Wars helped create. Like it's crazy to think one film having such huge cultural significance, but it sounds crazy, but without Star Wars, there's no Pixar. And that is like, it's one of those things that people don't talk about and people don't think about, but Star Wars led to LucasArts, led to, that creation and that type of filming style, which led to the creation of Pixar. Like it's so much was significant about this. It created a generation of fans. It created the entire marketing phenomena that, sci-fi and comics and cartoons are built upon. This was the first film that ever really did the marketing merchandising to the way that it did. It built an empire that has been continued on in so many other ways. This movie is, I don't know what else to say. It's that good.
It revolutionized cinema, basically.
Your bronze medal, son.
My bronze medal is The Force Awakens. I never in a million years would have dreamed they could have had the start that they did to the sequel trilogy. And I was so satisfied. And I think you and I knew really early on going in that Luke was not in very much of the movie. So it wasn't like, oh my God, like Luke's not here. What the hell? I actually really love the way Luke's used in this movie. The movie is legitimately about Luke Skywalker. Yes, Rey is the main character, but the whole mission, the mission statement for the movie is finding Luke Skywalker. and to get little bits of his backstory post Return of the Jedi revealed as the movie goes on was done so well. John Williams' score at the end of The Force Awakens as she's climbing the steps there at Skellig Michael or Octu or Achu. It's fantastic, and like Harrison Ford does not mail the performance in. He got paid a lot of money to do this movie. He also got guaranteed Indy 5. So he was very well compensated. And as Randy pointed out earlier, killed off Han Solo in the process, despite coming back again for The Rise of Skywalker. Although that was really, he had to do it because obviously Carrie Fisher could not. And it was cool of him to come back and do that, by the way. Nothing, I know we didn't really get too much into it when we talked about that film earlier on. There's few films I've ever seen in my life where I left the theater as satisfied as I was with The Force Awakens. Revenge of the Sith is one of them. I loved it. I mean, you guys have already talked about it a bunch. The acting in the movie is great. And you know what? The Force Awakens is a quick, like 2 hour and 15-minute movie. It does not feel like it's 2 hours and 15 minutes. It feels more like it's a 90-minute movie. It just flies by. The pacing is fantastic. So, The Force Awakens, number 3.
Silver medal time. Randy, number 2.
So this is definitely where things are going to differ, because you two have already mentioned this movie way lower on your guys' scales, but obviously for me, Return of the Jedi is my silver medal. Part of it is because I was actually able to see it when it first came out. As I've said before, my uncle did a bit of a cosplay thing before cosplay was a thing, and they had me dress up as Yoda for the event, and I remember just falling in love with the movie because, I mean, at 5, it's like, ooh, look, little Ewoks, they were fuzzy and cuddly and everything. And for a long time when I was a kid, this was my number 1 movie. This was my Christmas movie. This was what I watched as I tried to go to sleep, waiting for, Santa to drop his presents in. And I would watch Return of the Jedi on repeat. I pretty much wore out my VHS copy of it at the time. But what's not to say? What else is there to say about this? Is just the fact that it was getting to see the redemption of Vader, getting to see the true power at the time, the true power of the Emperor. Great performance by Ian McDiarmid with this. Before all the edits that Lucas did after, I enjoyed everything about this movie. I thought the space battle was great. I mean, it was definitely a large scale battle, one of the largest scale I'd ever seen at the time. And I felt like all the hero characters got a moment. Whether it was brief or not, there was just elements to this that everybody got to shine in some way, shape, or form. And yeah, there's really not much more I could say about it other than the fact that this is another one of those movies that I truly just could pop in any day and watch and not have any complaints.
So this isn't the full poster, but the posters that they did, I don't know if they did one for A New Hope or not, but the 40-year posters for Empire and Return of the Jedi, man, I wish I had the theatrical size framed versions of those posters. They're just so badass.
Artwork in Star Wars has always been phenomenal.
Ranking the theatrical posters later.
All right. My number 2 is Revenge of the Sith. I'm a wicked prequel hater, but this one stands head, shoulders, waist, thighs, knees above the other 2 prequel films for me. It's that much better. This was George's best writing of the trilogy. Not that was a particularly high bar to be met, but the performances by the actors inside this film was so much better than the writing that made up for a lot of George's shortcomings as a writer in this one. You know, of all George's skills, writing is not his best. And it's all well and good because of everything else he does so phenomenally well that if he'd have just let somebody else write the prequels, we'd probably be talking about a very different thing. But I digress. That's a point I'll make many times in the future. But Revenge of the Sith was so much more than the bad writing. The performances were phenomenal. And the Mustafar scene, I would argue that scene is the best scene in Star Wars. You know, from Obi-Wan's speech to the battle itself, that portion of the film is chef's kiss. You know, it's I don't want to say perfection, but it is wow. It is that good. The choreography of the fights, the performance by Ewan delivering that speech, you know, you can feel the emotion in every word that he says. Was such a great performance that this might actually have been able to give number one a run for its money, except for the fact that so much that came before it and after it was not good. I mean, Padme dying by heartbreak is inexcusably bad writing.
As weak as it is, it's a real thing, unfortunately.
Well, it is, but in Star Wars, it shouldn't be. This is a universe where you bring Anakin back from the burned husk of a shell he is at the end of that Mustafar scene and turn him into Darth Vader. You are seriously trying to tell me that heartbreak kills Padme? It was just, you know, could it have been explained better? Yes, absolutely. You know, could it have used something to, you know, was there better storytelling to be had there? Absolutely. But the sequence that came before it was that much better than anything else. It's quintessential. It's great. And that's why it rises to number 2 for me.
Well, it ain't going anywhere because it's my number 2 as well. One of my favorite theater experiences I ever had was seeing it with our mutual friend Greg opening night. It was just such a surreal experience at that time. Obviously, they're marketing it as the end of the saga, right before they realized billions and billions and billions of dollars more could be made. It was everything that I wanted it to be and more. I don't mind the Padme death because, like, people go through stress all the time, and the amount of stress that woman went through in about a 3-week period there, which is about it might be 2.5 weeks where the film takes place. It's fucking just an outrageous amount of emotion that she has to deal with. Positive, negative, positive, negative, negative, negative. Oh shit, I'm married to a child slaughtering psychopath, and yet I still have these other feelings. And by the way, he's also the father of my soon-to-be child, which I don't know are twins. It's a
How
lot.
does that happen?
It's a lot, right? I don't know. Like, George Lucas says it in the making of. He kind of cheats with Revenge of the Sith. There's a lot of they fight. And there is, because if it's not a lightsaber battle, it's some sort of battle sequence. There's not too many times in this movie where it goes dialogue-centric, but I got to tell you, when it does, it's far and away the strongest of this trilogy. The Palpatine Anakin seduction scene at the opera, the Tale of Darth Plagueis.
The seduction scene, that's an interesting way of putting it.
I mean, you're not wrong, but the
Right.
visual is so
Anakin, have I ever told you about the story of my master?
You're making it worse. Just stop. Just stop.
Uh, but I
Is
can't have
is
you. Only
is,
I.
is Mustafar his red planet of pain?
Oh God.
Um, the movie is fantastic, though, guys. Like, Ewan McGregor's performance as Obi-Wan really steals the show in this movie. But I don't think Hayden gets enough credit for how much stronger his performance is in Revenge of the Sith than it is Attack of the Clones. Again, like, other than the CG being wonky in a couple areas, it's miles above what Attack of the Clones gave us for the CG. And the lightsaber battles are fantastic. It features, in my opinion, the best lightsaber battle we will probably ever see. Um, the score too, start to finish, the best Star Wars score that there is. Revenge of the Sith, and honestly, everything post Vader taking his first breath in the suit after Padme has died. That whole closing like sequence where we go to 4 or 5 different places is so beautifully done. Like Padme's funeral is emotional. There's not a word of dialogue, and they find a way to pull it off in like this. Oh my god, that's fucking terrible. And oh, there's her kid sister, and it's just like it's moving. It's so well done. And Obi-Wan delivering Luke at the end, and looking at Owen and Beru with Luke looking off into the twin suns there as they're setting. I remember leaving that theater, and if I wasn't in tears, I was damn close to it.
It's hard to argue. All right. The law of obviousness tells us that we have a unanimous number one. So we'll save you guys the drama. We'll save everyone the time. So same order. Why is Empire your number one?
So as I finally got to the point of where I fully understood the vision that Lucas was going for with Empire Strikes Back, I finally got to the point where it's like, wow, the bad guys won. I've never seen anything like that before. It was new to me, but also just the emotion and the whole reveal of the greatest cinematic swerve ever. Like just that emotion of that alone between Vader and Luke, but also just the different set pieces and the different worlds we went to. They were so well done. The characters felt fleshed out. We saw some significant character growth on top of it. The story was tight. The acting was top notch. The action was great, and the music, the score was just so amazing. It all just came together into this masterpiece where the bad guys win. It's you're not, and it sits so well as going, you know what, this needed to happen. When you look at it as the trilogy as a whole, this needed to happen. It's like getting someone need to be taken down a peg or two. It had to happen, and I cannot get over just how brilliant Lucas was when it came to this particular movie, and just his designs and just the set pieces and the special effects and everything. This is something I can't wait till we just get to all sit down together and watch it. This is going to be amazing.
John, why don't you go next?
Perfect segue, because if we're sticking to the rules that we set for our watch alongs in terms of doing them in some sort of trilogy order and not going from like A New Hope to The Rise of Skywalker, The Empire Strikes Back would be our January watch along. If we do one a month, it puts us on pace for a Revenge of the Sith watch along in May. I don't suppose Tuesday's May the 4th. That'd be something. I'm just checking.
It's only one way to find out.
No, that's a Thursday. Yeah.
Saturday.
Is it? Oh, maybe I was looking at the wrong thing. So I'll keep it brief since we're going to do a watch along for this relatively soon. you nailed it. George Lucas accelerated on all cylinders, and I think the reason for that is he was able to hand off assignments and put the right people in the right places in order to make this movie as good as it possibly could. Irvin Kershner, not Gary, came in and was just a genius in the director's chair. George was a student of Irvin's. Again, in that Empire Dreams documentary, they go on at length about his involvement in Empire. He was actually supposed to come back for Jedi too, but there was a big lawsuit after they stuck the credits at the end of the film again instead of the beginning of the film, and they got sued by a bunch of people, and Lucas paid it out of pocket, and he left a bunch of the guilds, and it made it impossible for him to bring back Kershner for Return of the Jedi at that time. I'll leave you with this before I give it to Johnny. I know he disagrees with this take, but for me, it's my personal take. It's the greatest movie ever made, period. For me, anyway.
I mean, I don't so much inherently disagree. I think it's without question a top 3 film ever made. So for somebody to say it's their number 1, perfectly acceptable reason, and that's why it's my number 1 Star Wars film, because it's that good. It is, you can quibble about where you place it, but for anyone to say that it's not a top 5 film of all time, period, full stop, you are lying to yourself, or you're just so anti sci-fi that you refuse to allow it to be in your list, and you're wrong for that, because it is that good. The story is that good. Everything is that good, and this film alone proves that as sort of that creative direction guy, George is the best at it. He got, like Sean said, he got the right people in the right places to tell the right story, which all confirmed and stuck with his overall vision of Star Wars, and of that came one of the greatest films of all time. And I don't have anything more to add to that. It's that good. The writing is that good. The acting is that good. The performances are that good. Everything is that good. And the moments are that good. I didn't have the big reveal from Cloud City spoiled for me like I know Sean did. So to me, finding out that Vader was his father was a legitimate shock. And I'm watching this movie in 1997. And I didn't know that. So it's that good. It's a top 5 film of all time. I say a top 3 film of all time. And anyone who argues with that is wrong. On the screen here, you have just a quick overview of our rankings, where everything is ranked from back up. We have some agreement throughout. Empire was not our only unanimous choice, which I'm actually surprised by that. I didn't realize we had unanimously put The Rise of Skywalker that low on our list. So
no, that's an error. I think The Rise of Skywalker was 10 for someone. Might have been Randy. No,
I mean, I had it down at 11, and then Attack. Yeah, you got that right.
Oh no, see, the error is on mine. I don't know what happened there. Attack of the Clones.
You wrote your own list wrong.
Yeah.
Of all the lists to screw up in the graphic, it's your own. Oh man, that's very Wastelands of you. But I digress. There you go. We had one unanimous decision. I don't think there were any others on the quick cursory once over. We have some 2s, but that's the only 3. And quite frankly, that's right. It's the only one that's unequivocally correct. No one can argue with its placement on the list. All right, that's going to do it for this particular segment. It is now time. It'll probably be slightly truncated because we ran a little long tonight. So, game and share, game of the week. Sean, you had this week's choice.
Nope, I didn't.
No, that would be me.
Or was it Randy?
Yeah, it was me.
Well, okay then. That's my bad. That's
you're good.
All right then. Randy, you had this week's choice.
So I went with Star Wars Podracer on the N64. The game, I watched a little bit of gameplay today just because it's been a while since I've actually played this, but I really sat there and remembered. I was like, wow, I thought it was actually kind of neat just going around and being in pod races. But I also thought it was cool that you got to see different planets, different racetracks. You could you could upgrade your pod racer. You could unlock different racers and try out their pods as well. And it's like it overall was just a lot of fun. I thought it was actually, obviously tying into the marketing that they did for the Phantom Menace, which there were so many games that came out for that. Some of them were really good. Some of them were hot garbage. But for the most part, this was just a fun game. It wasn't anything serious. At least it's not like something like Super Bombad Racing where they're trying to be Mario Kart here or anything like that. This was just a straight up racing game that, I think, now on the Switch, it still holds up pretty well.
So the first place I ever played this game was at Johnny's. I don't know if he owned it or someone had brought it over. But I was playing this, and I remember being disappointed that it was a racing game. I was also very young. Like, I'm 11 years old when this thing comes out. So, but now today, like, it's something I would like to pick up for the Switch. I think I'd get a lot of fun out of it. Also, I was thinking to myself before doing the graphic for this that, wow, Star Wars Episode 1 Racer has such a fucking badass cover. Because it's a little more clean than a lot of N64 covers. And then I had somehow spaced out that Watto is in the background of the cover. I had remembered it as being the sleek black cover that just had Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, and there's fucking Watto just there in all of his glory.
I was thinking, but as you were saying, I was like, you mean the game cover, right? And the book, because the actual case was just Watto. I didn't know you liked him that much. For me, this game, I didn't like it. It was not mine. You did play it here, but it was my neighbor's. Lived upstairs at the time. I didn't like it. My brother loved it, but I didn't like it. Probably because of how much I hated it in the movie. It definitely did not help. And Sean's known me long enough to know that as far as racing games go, I'd much rather ones that involve an emphasis on crashing into other cars and things. That's just the way I like to, I like the chaos and the demolition, not so much the racing to finish first place, because that's just not nearly as fun for me, unless you're playing Mario Kart. But then you have the chaos and destruction with the items. But
so you're telling me you're a Twisted Metal guy?
I love Twisted Metal, loved it.
Star Wars Demolition.
I hated that because it was just a knockoff. But
you said you like crashing, damn it!
I did, but I didn't like Demolition because it was just not particularly a good version of that. I mean, it's the same as like Crush Hour. Like, you'd think a WWF game that's about destroying other cars, I'd love. Oh no, the game was garbage. I liked it, but I liked it because it was garbage. But I didn't enjoy the game when it came out. I mean, I've played it since then. Like, it's on the PlayStation. I have it installed. So I don't, I didn't enjoy it. I didn't like it. This was not a game for me.
Yeah, I get it. Like, if I was an adult when this came out, I don't think I would have been paying, $60 for
no, definitely not.
Pod racing game, right? Like, that wasn't going to happen. So at the same time, I look back at it now and I go, yeah, that's fun for $20. It's fun. 60 plus. I don't know about that. Johnny has the next pick for the game. I'm going to buy him some time because I don't know if he knew he was next or not. By letting everybody know they can like, comment, and subscribe to the channel / the notification bell to keep up to date with all the content that we have coming here. Also, check out our Patreon program, patreon.com/Phantom Empire. On Facebook, it's Phantom Empire Now. And on X, that's right, apparently it's called X, so I've been told, at Phantom Empire Now. Tomorrow night, talking all sorts of things, ranking the top 5 wrestling video games. I have not started my list, which is scary because I often fight with myself about these lists. Also, big shout out to the channel sponsors, Backtrack Cinema, Storytime Spectacular, and Colleague Nation. Without you guys, we wouldn't be here. Same goes for the patrons. Big thank you to you as well. We got a brand new video up over on the Legacy of Halloween, our other channel. The top 10 Michael Myers Halloween masks. We clipped it out of our Tonight in Haddonfield episode, put it up over there. Check it out. It's pretty neat little half an hour video Dean and I put together. So hopefully you enjoy it. Johnny, there was no midichlorians game, sadly, so you can't pick that.
Thank God for that. Midichlorians are not for life. They are dead. They're garbage. They should not exist. It's not a thing. But I digress. We'll talk about them enough when we actually do our episode 1 watch along, whenever that is. My game of the week, I don't know when we'll actually get to it, because we're not doing one next week because we're doing the watch along, and I don't know if we'll have an episode on Boxing Day. So I don't know if we'll get to it for a couple of weeks, but either way, it's going to be Empire at War.
Nice. I don't remember too much about that, but I have played it, and I'm just not very good at the strategy games. But man, that game had a ton of talk around it when it came out. And I don't know about next week. I mean, I might be on here doing something, I might not be. I don't know, because we're still moving things around. Or not next week, Boxing Day. We're still moving things around that Christmas week, so I may be here, I may not be here. Others may be here, others may not be here. We'll talk about it and see where things go. But yeah, Empire at War. I'm kind of excited. Now, are you including the expansion in with that?
Well, I mean, I think you have to. You know, it's the gold. I think it was, they called it the gold edition. Was the one that had both. It's the one most readily available. It's the one that's on Steam, and it's the one I got as part of that May 4th bundle. However many years ago it was on Humble.
All right, man. Well, take us home.
All right. Well, you kind of already did most of my shtick there. So,
Trying to afford you the time to think of something. I didn't know if you thought that.
I actually did. As soon as you said it, I was like, okay, I know what I'm picking. But that's all right. You did it, but I'll do it again because it can never be stated enough. Head on down to the bottom, hit like button, comment, subscribe, and slash the notification bell to help us defeat the evil algorithm. And of course, you can follow us, like he said, on X and Facebook at Phantom Empire Now. If you want to be a sponsor or provide to us on that Patreon level, head to patreon.com/Phantom Empire. And of course, you can check out our other shows. Like you said, Welcome to the Geek Side tomorrow night, if you're watching live, or 10 p.m. Wednesday nights, whenever you want to catch it after that. We're talking top 5 wrestling games, Punk Seth, the Otani debacle, and Christmas movies, and all things holiday related. So we'll end the show. So for Randy, for Sean, I'm Johnny. And we will say Dos Vidania from Dantooine. We'll see you next week when we watch A New Hope. And may the Force be with you all.